Thanks. I was tucking my daughter into bed last night, and she asked if she could come because I was explaining I was giving a presentation. I was like, not really. You have school. It's not really going to work out. But hey, it's going to be recorded. So, I'll show you. Maybe I'll put the video up on YouTube, and you'll get to see it. And she goes, "You're going to be on YouTube?" Like, it's really amazing how much cred YouTube gives you for a 6-year-old. But so shout out to Riley. Shout out to all of you. I am CJ. This is Phil. Say hi, Phil.
Hello.
We're The Gist. We are an inbound marketing agency and certified HubSpot Solutions Partner based right here in Buffalo, New York. Actually, more specifically, we're based right here in this building on the 29th floor. So we're close to home, and we're very excited to be here. Thank you to Maurer and everyone else from the 43North team for having us. Just to give you guys a little bit of context, who we are, where this is all coming from, we are not a full-service marketing agency. We don't do branding. We don't do paid media. We don't do a lot of things. What we actually do is we work with primarily B2B software and service companies throughout the United States to design and implement scalable organic growth systems, right? We like to see growth as something that you build into the design of the company rather than an event or a campaign or something that you do when you feel like it, a faucet that you turn on and off, right? So we help companies invest in the assets that they own or control and design growth into every aspect of their delivery, from marketing and sales and customer service. What does this translate into? It translates into SEO and content strategy, inbound marketing, sales enablement, and of course, CRM configuration, which really brings us to where we're at right now. We are, as I mentioned before, certified HubSpot Solutions Partners. We help companies buy HubSpot, implement it, manage it, support it, all this, that, and the other thing. And it's through all of our experience in doing this that in trying to orchestrate growth systems through CRM design, where we realized the importance of, yes, a deal pipeline, like something this innocuous. Deal pipeline feels like a pretty trivial topic to be giving a presentation on. We all know what it is. It's pretty simple. But we're actually here to make the case that through our experience in helping people grow through how their CRMs are designed, that a deal pipeline can be more than just a procedural requirement and actually an instrument for growth that touches all teams, not just the sales team. And that's really the case that we're going to be making today. So what are we covering? We're going to start with what is a deal pipeline and how do we, as in most people, think about a deal pipeline and use it. And we're going to spend as little time there as possible because it's kind of stuff that everybody knows, but we just need to hit that, get on the same page. Then we're going to offer how we think about deal pipelines. And we're going to offer some very specific examples and concrete suggestions for how you can improve or optimize your deal pipeline so that it becomes more of that instrument for growth and less just like a organizational tool for sales, right? We're going to share some resources, including a workbook that is going to allow you guys to try to put some of these ideas in place immediately. And then Q&A, and that's obviously our favorite part. We have these, have you ever seen these throw mics before? Honestly, I must not get out a lot because I've never seen those. But the way it works is you just throw it and then it becomes the mic. So if you have a question, everybody's going to be able to hear you, which is awesome. One more thing I do want to mention is that, yes, we said we are HubSpot Solutions Partners. We are going to reference HubSpot at times. A lot of the things that we're talking about right now are examples that are derived from our experience with HubSpot, but I want to be very clear that this presentation is platform agnostic. It does not matter if you use HubSpot or not. It does not matter what CRM you use, what's in your tech stack. In this presentation, you will be able to appreciate what we're talking about, and if you're interested, apply some of these best practices regardless. So just want to get clear on that. So, first and foremost, what is a deal pipeline? We're going to go through this pretty quickly because most of you already know. If you ask a handful of different people, you'll probably get a handful of different answers, even though a deal pipeline is seemingly so innocuous. So let's just go from the source to somebody who really should know what a deal pipeline is. And I promise this is like going to be the only time I'm reading off a slide. Deal pipelines, this is from HubSpot. Deal pipelines help visualize your sales process to predict revenue and identify selling roadblocks. Deal stages are the steps in your pipeline that signal to your sales team that an opportunity is moving forward or to the point of closing. Okay, everybody, yes? Okay, makes sense? All right. This is what a deal pipeline looks like. How incredible. There are a bunch of cards or records which indicate a sales opportunity. They progress through stages which represent major milestones in the sales process. As you move them along, there are probably fields or properties that allow you to capture data relevant to the specific sales process. And this is a pipeline. And your organization may have one pipeline, or it may have multiple pipelines. Some companies have multiple pipelines for different products or services or different teams. Sometimes it's by deal type, right? You have a pipeline for like net new growth and acquisition, and maybe another one for retention and renewals, maybe another one for current client upsells. Regardless, right, here's your pipeline, and this is how it looks. Now, finally, how are most people using it and thinking about it? It really breaks down into two different categories, right? There is the individual sales level, and then there's the leadership level. On the individual sales level, very much as a prerequisite, it's going to show every single opportunity, right? You don't really have much of a pipeline if if you're not having a deal record for every single opportunity broken out into stages or milestones. Then sales reps are going to use that to track those opportunities. They're going to see how far or close they are to quota, and then how to prioritize their time. On the leadership side, deal pipelines are very critical for forecasting, right? We all know this, but I want to be very clear. A forecast is very important, but it is not a list of companies that you're talking to or that you have a proposal out to. It is a rather simple, but still a formulaic way of expecting what's going to be coming in and when or not, right? So obviously that is a very important thing that people use the deal pipeline for. And then finally, sales managers use it for coaching, holding their reps accountable. I think we're all pretty much on the same page that, okay, I got it. You've totally belabored the point, CJ. We all have a deal pipeline, or if I don't, it's on purpose because I don't want to use it. But the point is that these are very instrumental tools, and if you're using it for all of these reasons, which the vast majority of companies, this is basically what it is. No need to overthink it. But what we are here to argue is that a deal pipeline is even more important than that. Or actually a better way of saying it would be a deal pipeline is significantly more valuable than that. As I mentioned before, most people, the way they use a deal pipeline, it is a procedural requirement, right? It is like an organizational tool or project management for sales. You track deals, you submit deals, you report on them. And while that's great, the deal pipeline actually has the potential to be an instrument for growth that touches all teams. So think about it this way, right? Everything flows either into or out from your deal pipeline. Everything that marketing does is designed to influence the creation and ultimately the closed winning of new deals. Now, I get it that marketing is responsible for brand awareness and PR and like all of these other things, but let's be honest, like regardless, the one thing that as a marketer that you are held accountable for is how many deals that you are creating or influencing and what percentage of them close, as well as like the cumulative revenue, right? How much are you influencing the actual growth of the company? How much are you supporting sales, right? So obviously not every campaign is going to be a home run, and not every blog post view or content offer download or social media follow or lead generated, whatever, is going to result in the creation of a qualified sales opportunity and a deal, let alone a closed one. But we know where the thrust is. Marketing needs to flow opportunities into this pipeline, sales need to work them, and then After a deal is closed won, you have implementation or you have client success teams that have to then do the onboarding or make the products or deliver the services. And, in most cases, what they do, when they do it, how they take those steps is dependent upon information that was captured in the deal pipeline or inputs that the sales team was able to collect. So they're basically taking that handoff from the sales team within the deal pipeline and then actually doing the work, right? So when you look at it this way, the deal pipeline has an opportunity to be a major inflection point in the growth of your company. And we would argue that the deal pipeline should be the single source of truth for growth in your company, right? Just the way we say like the CRM should be the single source of truth for customers, the deal pipeline can and should be the single source of truth for growth. And it can be more than, again, this procedural requirement. It can also foster communication, improve visibility, reduce friction and create efficiencies, facilitate handoffs from one team to another, and significantly improve our ability to understand and analyze growth through reporting so that we understand not just, so we view growth as more of just, okay, how much and when, but rather where is it coming from, why is it happening, in what areas are we strong and what areas are we weak, and really understand and diagnose growth so that it can be extrapolated and done more intentionally moving forward. So this is the premise. So we're taking this very trivial, innocuous thing in your deal pipeline and we're saying, make it better. It should be more. And it's not that hard. So if you accept the premise that a deal pipeline is more than just that and can and should be an instrument for growth, the next question comes, what should we expect from our deal pipeline? And what should we do about it? So this is kind of like the meat of the presentation. We're going to go through some like really specific concrete examples right now. Go ahead, Phil.
Okay. One of the first steps that we always think about when we are optimizing our deal pipeline is how are we going to get those deals started? How are we going to get them into the pipeline to begin with? So on that slide that CJ had at the very beginning, the visual representation of a deal pipeline, you saw the different stages and the cards. And at this point, hopefully you've already set that up in your pipeline. You've established your milestones, maybe even your fields or your properties for the data that you're going to gather. But again, how are we going to get the deals in there to begin with? And of course, you could have somebody manually do them, but depending on the size of your company and your sales team and your organization, that could be a full-time job, let alone right then and there. So how can we make that more efficient? How can we automatically get deals into your pipeline? Well, as any good marketer or web developer would know, forms are probably the most efficient and the best way to do that, and we'll talk about that in a second. There's some other areas too, like maybe you've set up a chat bot on the site and through a series of questions, you've gotten it narrowed down to, I need a proposal or I need a quote, I'm ready for a demo software, something like that, right? You can automatically get a deal set up in your first stage, or maybe another stage down the line of needs proposal or scheduled demo software, something like that. But we've automatically then started the process. And through form submissions as well, you can automatically create a deal and get that pipeline rolling. You can also automatically assign those deals to the correct people. I think that's a huge step that a lot of people overlook. Depending on your forms, depending on the questions you're asking in those forms, or in this case, the information you're collecting, you can get those deals to the correct people right from the get-go. So depending on industry, service, size of the deal, and where the deal's coming from. Maybe you've set up a booth at a trade show. Maybe it is a demo software and you have people that are just stronger in that area. They can walk through your sales and service or your software is better than others, and they're going to close those deals at a higher rate. So you can get those to the right people at the right time. It also helps you with automatically communicating that information internally and externally. So we know as web developers and marketers, when somebody fills out a form, we want to maybe trigger an email out to go to them right away. Thank you for your submission. Somebody will be in contact with you. That's a pretty basic thing. But what about internal communication? Making sure all that information you collected gets to the right person, whether that be the sales rep, their manager, different department heads, or anybody And now we've started to create some visibility into the deal pipeline as well. So we know what's coming in. As CJ said, marketing and sales, their job is to get information into the pipeline and then maybe move it along. And we started that process as well. Obviously, we're saving time, as I just said, without having to manually create deals. And also, it establishes consistency right away with the sales process. So sales reps, sales managers can understand what they're going to receive. They are prepared for it, they're ready for it, and they can kind of begin their whole process of moving that deal closer to the closed won stage.
So once you realize the ability to create efficiencies by creating deals automatically, then it's like, okay, well, how do you improve the way that you update and advance deals? And one of the most important things that you can have in any deal pipeline, and this really impacts marketing too, by the way, and that is so often overlooked, is the idea of requiring your sales team to enter information in the pipeline in order to move a deal to each stage, right? There's so much valuable information that is discussed and captured when a deal is being worked, and that data is really valuable for marketing, sales, customer service. So what you do is you list out all the stages in your deal pipeline, and then you literally just make a list of, okay, in order for somebody to have reached this milestone in the sales process, what information would they absolutely had to have understood, collected, whatever, every single time? And then you make your pipeline require anybody who uses it to put that information in there. So for example, if you have like a stage for needs analysis completed, right? You should require that rep to put in the industry that the prospect is in, the size, what their pain points are, maybe the deal type, the source of business, right? Things that are incredibly valuable for a bunch of different people. And there's no way you can complete a needs analysis, let's say, or a discovery, or whatever you call it, without collecting that information. So when you bake this into how the deal pipeline is configured and designed, you've created a systematized way of gathering information that you can aggregate. You can use this for reporting, but also for doing internal communication and notifications where you can send updates based on that information. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah, actually, we're gonna talk about that right now. Escalating deals that haven't been updated for a significant period of time. So you guys might be sitting there and saying, CJ, Phil, we get it. We don't have a problem with collecting information. Our milestones, our deal stages are rock solid. They're tried and true. We know what we like. We have it. It's all set up. Our problem is that we consistently run into roadblocks with moving those deals from stage to stage, whether that be through lack of activity, lack of communication, or not organized, a variety of different reasons. What if you could escalate those and send out notifications internally and externally, which I'll mention in just a moment, to make sure that some sort of activity or some sort of motion is taking place on those deals? So imagine a scenario where you have a deal and it's been 60 days and they haven't been emailed, they haven't been called. So that card that you're looking at has just been sitting there for 60 days and nothing is happening on it. I mean, as far as they know, it's over. I mean, we should do something with that, right? Like some sort of activity should happen, whether marketing creates a piece that can automatically trigger to go out to them to try to re-engage them. How about an internal task notification to that sales rep and their manager or a supervisor saying, hey, you haven't contacted this person in 60 days. Why don't you send them an email, give them a call, schedule a meeting, drop by their office. Or a sales manager can see this, go to the sales rep and say, hey, why haven't you called this person? Is there something going on? Oh, I just don't have the time. Well, let's move that to somebody that does have the time. Let's give that to somebody else on the sales team so that they can nurture that deal along to at least take some activity. And maybe the reality is just they're just not interested. They've ghosted you for 60 days and there's maybe a reason for that. Well, then at that point, we should get it out of the system, right? We should move it from that stage it's in, and let's just automatically move it or push it to closed lost, set the reason for that closed lost deal, which we'll get into in just a moment, as lack of activity for more than 60 days. So now we know that this deal's probably just a lost deal, and that's okay. That happens. It's not a 100% win rate all the time, but we're organizing and keeping our deal pipeline a little bit cleaner, which goes a long way. I mean, at best, you'll prevent opportunities from slipping through the cracks. So things aren't just going to get lost in the shuffle. But at the very least, you'll prevent your pipeline from having a bunch of stale deals just sitting there. You'll keep it cleaner and organized, and really what we call pipeline integrity or deal pipeline integrity, where everything's clean and organized, and like just pulling it up, what's what. Everything that's in specific stages are really there for a reason. They're not just there simply because they haven't been moved in 30, 60, 90 days or whatever the case is.
So another thing is that, think about it this way, right? Because marketers and sales, this is something that they're often required to task together, especially when you get into account-based marketing, right? A lot of us in here work for companies that have longer product purchase cycles, right? Whatever product or service you sell usually requires a buying team. One person can't make the decision by themselves. They have to do research. They have to maybe compare against other competitors. It takes a long time to make a decision, maybe months, maybe years, right? So whenever you have a long product purchase cycle, you have sales teams and by extension marketing teams that experience lulls in the sales process. And people sometimes struggle to figure out when to follow up, the right way to follow up, what to say, right? You kind of want to keep those deals alive, and you want to show that you're thorough and helpful, but you don't want to like cross that line to be annoying and pesky, right? So sometimes it can be really, really hard to pick your spots, when to follow up, when to engage, especially during those long sales cycles, right? Where you're playing that long game, running that marathon. Well, in situations like that, the more information you can be armed with, the better. And the reality is your deal pipeline and your CRM as a whole has the ability to provide you with useful information about your prospect. So one example right here, let's say your prospect, who's a contact associated with that deal, visits your website, or maybe more specifically, a specific page on your website, like your pricing page. Don't you think as the sales rep trying to close that deal, or the marketing manager who may influence that deal with automated emails or other little things to help nurture them, don't you think you would want to have that information? Right? It doesn't mean you have to just like go right in and be like, hey, I saw that you visited our pricing page. No, but the more you can be armed with knowledge about what your prospect is thinking and doing, the more valuable you can be at engaging them and closing opportunities. Your deal pipeline should do this for you.
So I've mentioned a couple times already about as a sales manager being notified of specific things, and want to dive a little bit more into that. If there are any sales managers or sales reps here today, you know that sometimes it's difficult to be aware of where everything stands with your team or in your pipeline, without having to walk up to that person and say, hey, how's it going with this, or what's the status of this, which we know can get a little kind of annoying, and you don't want to seem overbearing or micromanaging. It'd be nice to get that information automatically. So when some of those certain milestones are reached or deal stages are reached with those deals, we can trigger automations to go out notifying managers of that situation. So for example, a software demo is scheduled. It's helpful to know that. You can then approach your salesperson and say, hey, I see you scheduled this software demo. Is there something I can help you with? You're now opening up coaching opportunities for your sales team, which is huge. And we all know that's value. We're now opening up that growth system that we've talked about. Other sales process, other formal milestones like needs analysis completed or a proposal sent. Maybe you need to review the proposal, make sure there was no errors, make sure the pricing is correct. Without having to go track that salesperson down, you can have it automatically as well sent to you so that you can review that proposal before it makes its way to the prospect on the deal. And then sometimes some things just need to get tasked out. Maybe something happens at a certain stage and somebody else needs to step in and do their job. And as a sales or marketing manager, now you are kind of made aware of those. You can delegate and designate that information to the right people, make sure they're getting the correct information they need as well so that they can properly do their job, and just, again, keep that deal moving along to that closed won stage. And sometimes you just need to stay in the loop. And I think that really is just the whole point of this is you need more insight, create some more visibility without having to kind of walk up to somebody and bug them in the middle of their day. Now you kind of have that insight without having to do that.
All right, this one might be my favorite one. except for maybe requiring properties to move deals into new stages. When we think about the sales process, it's usually very linear, even though in reality it's like all, up, down, left, right, all these variables. But regardless, when we think about the sales process in a linear way, we usually think about when deals are created and when deals close. And we usually think about that in the terms of closed won, except for the fact that most deals are closed lost. The vast majority of companies, right, more than 50% of deals that are created are not converted to accounts. So we should be really mindful of that. So here's some advice for how to configure your closed lost stage. First of all, capture a closed loss reason. Ideally, you could have a drop-down select or a multiple select where people can select one or a handful of different reasons why it was lost. We try and suggest do just make them select only one reason if that works for you. The reason why you can do this is so valuable for reporting. It's really important, just as it is to understand where deals are coming from, source of business, right? And how to cross-reference that against other variables like industry or size or what products they're interested in. But especially when they lose, we want to know why. A good leadership team should be able to analyze that and look for commonalities between closed loss reasons and other things. Again, like industry, like size. What products are we really successful at selling versus the ones we struggle with? Oh, you know what? When a company is in this industry or this size and looking for this, this is going to be really important. Otherwise, they're going to not, right? Capture that closed loss reason, analyze it, make better decisions that could lead to improvements in your product, could lead into improvements of your sales process. Then, very simple, win back possibility, yes or no? Is this worth another attempt sometime in the future? And if so, pick the date. And then your CRM will automatically send you a task whenever that date arrives. Maybe it's 6 months from now, a year, 2 years from now, whatever it is. But if there is a win-back possibility, choose a follow-up date, then get that task that says, hey, CJ, remember ABC Demo Company? Well, you said you wanted to follow up with them on this date. Here's a little information to jog your memory, right? Now you're systematizing those win-back attempts and you're making sure that they don't fall through the cracks. And of course, while this person is in this category, this segment, the marketing team can make sure that they're at least getting like the monthly newsletter or invitations to webinars where it's like, hey, look, we get it. We need to respect your decision. We're not going to jump down your throat, but we will remind you that we exist and drip little bits of value to you throughout the process so that when that follow-up date arrives months or years later, it will be significantly more well-received. Amazing opportunity with Closed Lost.
One of the things CJ didn't mention, my primary responsibility for the GIS is account manager and helping the clients that we bring in kind of get their system set up and in place. And it's amazing to me every time that we go through this process with a new client that maybe already is using, in our case, HubSpot. They have a closed lost deal stage, but that's it. They're not using it in any other way other than that, and that just always blows my mind. But we talked a lot about closed won, and when a deal is closed won, what happens after that? Obviously, we've collected the payment, we've signed a contract, but beyond that, what's going on? One thing that we can't stress enough, and that I want to make sure is communicated here today, is that you should never really build or design your deal pipeline without consulting your customer service, your onboarding team, your implementation team, your production team, whatever you want to call it, without getting their input first, because they are the ones that are going to take the handoff from that closed won deal and then onboard the client, get them set up, get everything going that they need to do, whether that's a product or a service. The last thing you want is any type of buyer's remorse or regret for signing up with you guys in the first place. And if information is not communicated to them properly, you're at risk of running into that situation. And that's something every team and every company wants to avoid at all costs. So maybe as simple as just making sure that the information those teams needed is required before that deal even moves to closed won. That's the first step. So communicating with them before you design your pipeline, asking them what is that information they're going to need. It could even be things like, making sure specific types of paperwork are sent out to the client before they even make their first phone call, so that that process is already started. You're reinforcing consistency, and you're aligning your teams as well. So they're going to be more trustworthy of your sales and marketing team, and your sales and marketing team are also going to trust them that they're going to take that client that they've worked so hard to bring on and give them a positive experience with your company moving forward.
To wrap us up, we absolutely have to talk about reporting, and there's not nearly enough time right now to go through with all the different ways you can have visibility into your deal pipeline, and by extension, really visibility into the growth of your company. But reports are super duper important, which is the scientific term. So marketing is going to want to know like what content influences the creation of deals, right? Which source of business, for example, closes the most deals? And by the way, like what's the close rate on MQLs? What percentage of marketing leads that are passed to the sales team close? And what's the average size deal? I mean, you can just go way further into that, but just to give you an idea. Obviously, on the sales side, you're looking at forecasts and quotes and things like that. You want to look at close rate based on industry, size of business, pain points, right? That's something that you should capture. And then deal insights, right? Just looking at a global, high-level view of all of your deals broken out by certain variables, new business versus existing, deal type, deal owner, whatever. On the service side, right? There may be situations where you would want to adjust the onboarding timeline based on things that was collected in the deal pipeline. Also, these teams are going to be looking at things like average lifetime value and retention rate, right? So if they look at those things, those are really important. Well, what if they cross-reference that with some of the information that's captured in the deal pipeline? Now you're all working together to identify who your ideal customer actually is, right? So there's just tremendous power in the reports. What this ultimately comes down to is the premise that we're offering is your deal pipeline should serve as a single source of truth for growth, right? It should be built to accommodate any person or team that impacts customer acquisition and growth, which, by the way, is a lot of people and a lot of teams. Marketing, sales, implementation, customer service, maybe your IT team, maybe your product team, right? All of these people impact acquisition and growth. And the deal pipeline should be built to accommodate these people and also be built to accommodate all levels. Lots of pipelines are built to accommodate a sales manager, and it gives them reports they need. That's good. They could see how everybody is progressing, where they are to quota, but maybe it's forfeiting a lot of the opportunity for the deal pipeline to be the tool that it is. Maybe it's clunky, right? So you want to make sure that it is built for everyone. Again, deal pipeline, as we went over here, and we're going to follow up with resources to make sure that everybody understands it. Deal pipeline does have the ability to be a tool for providing visibility into growth for the entire company, keeping people in the loop with notifications, alerts, updates, saving time by automating things and creating efficiencies, reducing friction, communicating with your customer, handing off from one team to the next, and following up on opportunities both in the present, in the future, and then finally providing significantly more visibility into growth, which, if you're paying attention, will help you grow by understanding where growth is coming from and how it can be achieved in the future. So I hope that makes a lot of sense. Just to kind of wrap things up, you may have noticed on the bottom, we have a URL, thegistinbound.com/43North. At that page, and hopefully it can be emailed out later or something, on that page, we basically have an overview of this whole presentation. In some instances, we can go a little bit deeper. The biggest thing on that, though, is a workbook. And I want to talk about that for a second before we wrap up. So the Deal Pipeline Planning Workbook is an adaptation of a real workbook that we use with our clients who pay us to help them figure this out and design their CRMs and build their deal pipelines. What this includes is it's basically a tool. It's a Google Sheet, read-only. You got to clone it, and then you can customize your own, right? And it starts by helping you define what your stages are, like what are the different milestones in your sales process, what is the definition, like the rule, the criteria for a deal advancing into that stage, What is the forecast or win probability of a deal reaching that stage? Then you brainstorm all the different like properties or data points or basically information relative to sales that you want to capture. And then it's not in this screenshot, but there's a really cool mapping tool where you list out all of your stages, and for every stage you define, okay, what properties do we want to require people to input in order to move a deal into this stage? What about escalations? What about automations? What about other things? And it's really clean, it's really intuitive. Our clients love it, we use it with them. So that's what you're going to get. And there's two tabs. There's an example and a blank one. So you can look at the example, which is somewhat similar. It's not our exact pipeline, but it's similar to the one that we use at the Gist. So you can look at that one for ideas and inspiration, and then you can take the blank one and you can do it yourself. Again, we've provided more examples on this page in terms of providing more context into all of the suggestions that we have made, right? So create deals automatically from form submissions and other triggers. We've provided some concrete examples of how that could work. And then the last thing I want to say is we are making ourselves available to anybody in this room or really anybody who registered. If you have any questions, if you want to do like a little quick session to walk through your deal pipeline planning workbook, just anything you want to bounce off of us, you want to tell us how great our presentation was, then just schedule this free consultation. This is not a sales pitch disguised as a free consultation. No, we really do just want to help. So you can book either 15 or 30 minutes. It's on the bottom of that page. Again, that's thegistinbound.com/43North. So I want to thank the 43North team, everybody else. Thanks for listening. Thanks for having us. I'll open it up to questions. Great, Cindy, thanks. I really hope somebody asks a question. Oh, damn, I wanted to throw it. Yeah, I want to throw it. Yeah, thanks. Oh, hey, Chris.
Oh.
It works. Thank you for talking through someone who's relatively uneducated in the deal pipeline flow, kind of the reasons and the logistics for it. I'm interested in how you work with your clients on the broader strategy piece, right? Especially for early stage companies. Wins and closing, I think, becomes a very important priority for them. But in a world of limited resources, especially for an early stage business, you can see a lot of dollars being spent in an area where maybe they should be focusing more on compliance or more on delivery than on growth. So I'm interested in your guys' thoughts on that.
That's a great question. Probably could be answered in a variety of ways. What I would say is, especially early stage companies, you hear MVP, minimally viable product, right? So you don't want to take years or months or even weeks to design your deal pipeline, right? Like deals need to start flowing. A deal pipeline obviously is not going to do outreach for you, networking, lead gen, but this is a perfect example where if you look at things like size of business, source of business, closed won reason, closed loss reason, right in the pipeline now, you should be able to, if you're running deals through and you're just spending just a little bit more time to make sure you're capturing that data, you can provide that insight where, oh yeah, compliance is an issue, right? We're learning that, right? Now all of a sudden our deal pipeline is informing our sales strategy because we've been mindful of that when we were building that. Does that kind of answer?
Yeah.
Yeah, and to piggyback off that, I would say one of the last things we talked about with the handoff to an implementation or an onboarding team, that's where some of that insight into, hey, we're kind of lacking with some of the information that is being carried over to those teams, or compliance issues, or lack of paperwork, or maybe we need to have maybe we need another piece of paperwork created and signed as a result of compliance or as a result of something else. If you are building those into the system right away, you're eliminating the risk of having that pop up as an issue later on, I would say.
Anybody else dare ask? Oh yeah, we got one. Good throw, Josh Allen. No, maybe just give it a second. We have the other one.
All right, I'm pretty loud.
All right.
Kind of a three-part question, if you will. So you work primarily with B2B SaaS companies, and I'm just curious what channel is the primary one that you're seeing produce leads? What's sort of an average conversion rate from a lead to an opportunity, and then a win rate from an opportunity to a close?
So lead to opportunity, all right, just so everybody can hear that. What are the channels that are producing the most opportunities? What's the conversion rate from lead to opportunity and then opportunity to close? Channels that are producing the most, organic properties. So this would be your website. So if you have a content strategy, you're blogging, you're doing things that help you. Let's just put it this way. So the traditional marketing is like run ads on stuff, right? Get in front of as many people, generate leads. And certainly like that is effective. Like there's people who run Facebook, LinkedIn, Google ads, whatever, and that works, right? The problem with that though is that it's a faucet that you turn on and off, right? As soon as you stop paying, those ads stop running, it stops working, right? And so it does not become that like permanent, sustainable way to grow. And when you think about it, in order to do that, you have to produce content just to run for those ads. So it's content with a short shelf life, right? To run on somebody else's platform that you don't own or control, that because of, the way media is working, usually those audiences just shrink and shrink and shrink because the age of mass customization. And usually it ends up increasing more and more, right? So if this was a socioeconomic study, they would call this a poverty trap, right? It's a law of diminishing returns. It's just constantly chasing that who's got the best channel, who's got the best whatever. It doesn't mean it doesn't work. I have clients, partners, whatever, who have success in paid advertising. But what works the best and what is most reliable is having a blog that ranks high on Google. Because when you get that high ranking, you could conceivably take a vacation for a month or 2 months, and that blog is still going to rank. It's still going to get traffic. People are going to come through. People are going to inquire. Same would be true for other properties. So like having your own podcast or your own YouTube series, right? Those content and assets that you own or control. So those are the best, and then distributing them consistently and thoughtfully. So LinkedIn obviously is like very successful. As far as the conversion from lead to opportunity, that really depends on, in my opinion, like what is your definition of a lead? Is it a subscriber? Or is it somebody who downloads a content offer? Or is it anybody who does actually like inquire for like request a quote or a demo? So I'm going to have a hard time answering that question. I would say anywhere from 2% to 20%, depending on the business, I feel like would be good. And then, in terms of a deal in the pipeline to close, I personally think like, 20 to 40% in that range is pretty good. But again, it depends. If you're qualifying the right opportunities and setting the right expectations, it should be fairly good. But we work with a handful of companies that close at close to 40, 50%. And we're kind of in that range too. So I would think that would be good.
Great, thanks.
All right, Joe, I can be off.
Enunciate.
So first off, great presentation.
Thanks.
I'm going to pump the tires for CJ too, because we had a consultation back in the spring, and that was great too. For a business like mine, so context, I'm a marketer for a company where we have multiple business divisions, multiple tools and things like that. So I look at something like a deal pipeline, thinking we're going to need multiples, like it's not just going to be one unique pipeline, things like that. Can you guys speak a little bit to the value of having like a single source of input and how that kind of helps the team consolidate buy-in for a deal pipeline and making sure everybody's on the same page with something like this?
Yeah, so in terms of, I want to take the buy-in part first. So if you route like attribution reporting in your deal pipeline, that suddenly makes the deal pipeline way more valuable to marketers, right? So if the reports that you show that says like, hey, how many MQLs do we generate? How many of them close? Total revenue? If that's pulling from the deal pipeline, well then, the marketing team is sure as shit going to make sure that the deal pipeline is going to have those reporting metrics. So same thing with sales, right? If they can't physically move a deal to closed won, then without capturing the information that they need to capture that's required of them, maintaining that deal pipeline integrity, then they're not going to close deals and not going to get commission checks. And the same is true for facilitating that handoff to implementation or onboarding. So if you structure your deal pipeline the right way, you will get buy-in, but not just because it's enforced and important for people's jobs, but because also all the things that we talked about, how it can help you with those, warm lead notifications or the closed loss reminders or the automated handoffs. Like, if you just put a little bit of effort into it, it actually makes everybody's life easier. And so that's really where the buy-in comes in. The first part of your question was on like one or multiple deal pipelines. Our world is already far too complex. So if you could do one pipeline or the fewest amount of pipelines possible, do it. That said, there are scenarios where you need multiple or where you need to consolidate multiple into one. I've had a couple of clients in the same exact industry. One of them wants one pipeline for all deals. One of them wants to break out net new in one pipeline and current client upsells in another, right? So it really does come down to preference. Ultimately, it's only as good as how well you use it. Kind of like a diet or a workout regimen, right? It's all about discipline. You can like have a different property inside of a deal pipeline that says like deal type or products and services. So they could be those like little properties that you capture on deals and then break them out that way. So you don't need to create a new pipeline for every single thing. But really the case where you would need to create multiple pipelines are when the milestones are different. When it's a completely different sales process that has different steps, different milestones, that's really when it needs a new pipeline. Great question.
Okay, let's hear it for the gist.
Thank you.